This is the story of Yennefer of Vengerberg. Geralt first met Yennefer after Geralt and Dandelion go fishing and catch a small stoneware jar which, as it turns out, holds a djinn. The djinn is not amused once freed and attacked and wounded Dandelion, hurting his throat quite badly. Geralt shouts an exorcism he once learned from a priest in a desperate attempt to get rid of the djinn, and surprisingly it works. Geralt tries to find help in Rinde, a nearby town. They won't let him in, but they learn from Círdan and Eredil, 2 elves, that there is a sorceress living in this very town. She has settled with a Novigrad merchant called Bo Barent. She is ignoring both the sorcerer boycott on Redanian cities and the local councillors. Her name is Yennefer of Vengerberg. So Geralt goes to find Yennefer at Bo Barent's house. He wasn't allowed in the house, of course, so he got rid of the guard and found a drunk Bo Barent telling him she wants apple juice. Bo then fell asleep standing up, leaving Geralt to go upstairs to bring her apple juice. As Geralt goes up the stairs, he smells the scent of lilac and gooseberries. He then encountered a ravaged feast table and a pair of high-heeled basilisk skin slippers, the most expensive raw material available for making shoes, and a carelessly discarded black dress with white frills and an embroidered flowery pattern. As Geralt moved up the stairs further, he also found 4 withered white roses and a napkin stained with wine and crimson lipstick. The scent of lilac and gooseberries grew stronger as he went up the stairs leading to a bedroom. A white shirt with lace cuffs and quite a lot of white roses lay on the floor, accompanied by a black stocking. The other stocking hung from one of the 4 engraved posts which supported the domed canopy over the bed. Yennefer was in that bed. She asked Geralt for the apple juice and, after drinking it all, asked who Geralt was, what he was doing here, and where Bo was. Geralt responded with a sarcastic "which question shall I answer first?", to which Yennefer fired a spell at him which he caught with the sign of heliotrope but still knocked him back. Yennefer, as it turned out, had never met a witcher before and seemed very interested in Geralt as such. Geralt asked her for help with Dandelion and agreed to talk about witchers with her after Yennefer had helped him. While she agreed, she did state she would first need a bath as she already skipped breakfast at this point and got out of bed way earlier than she'd liked. The only reason she was even prepared to listen to him was because he'd brought her apple juice. She also pointed out he might do with the bath himself. Geralt joins her in the bath chamber to wash up as well, and seems quite shy about his naked appearance as he turns around when she looks at him. Yennefer, however, tells him not to be shy because, as her friend Triss Marigold says, if you've seen one, you've seen them all. Yennefer then proceeds to bombard Geralt with questions about witchers, after which she decides that she should probably take her bath while invisible, so she could still look Geralt in the eyes while they talk. Geralt got a little distracted by the soapy shapes in the bathwater either way. When Geralt tells her about the djinn and the exorcism Geralt used to get rid of it, Yennefer laughs at him and says Triss would kill herself laughing if she told her, informing Geralt that the exorcism he used wasn't an exorcism at all, but rather a witty and somewhat indecent saying. Yennefer then asks Geralt if Dandelion still has the seal of the djinn, however, Geralt has the seal. In any case, he told Yennefer that yes, Dandelion still had the seal, knowing he shouldn't tell sorcerers too much. He tells her Dandelion is currently staying at the inn owned by Eredil, the elf that had helped them before. Yennefer seemed to know him and asked if Círdan was there as well. They portal over to Eredil's inn, even though Geralt did mention he hates portals. When they get to the inn, Círdan mentions to Geralt that Yennefer isn't often inclined to help anyone, only if there's something in it for her. He then warns Geralt not to trust her, she's quite dangerous. Yennefer interrupts their conversation and calls Geralt upstairs to Dandelion's room. While Geralt walks up the stairs, he scrutinizes Yennefer's appearance a bit. Her left shoulder was slightly higher than her right, her nose slightly too long, her lips a touch too narrow, her chin receding a little too much, her brows a little too irregular. He decided he saw too many details and stopped staring. Inside the room, Yennefer had placed magical signs on the floor. She tells Geralt she wants the djinn seal he has as a first installment of her payment, and they exchange snarky remarks, as they do. Geralt eventually gives her the first part of the seal, but tells her he wants to take Dandelion to a safe place before anything else happens. Yennefer, however, says she needs him here and points out that as Geralt stood around talking, a spell she'd cast before slowly paralyzed him without him realizing. Geralt tells her Círdan will soon realize something's wrong and come to check on them. However, Yennefer informs him that Círdan is in fact in love with her and was even going to challenge Bo to duel over her. Geralt tries in vain to wrestle out of the spell. "Don't struggle, my little witcher," Yennefer says as she smiles spitefully. "It's pointless. You've got a strong will and quite a bit of resistance to magic, but you can't contend with me and my spell. And don't act out of farce for me, don't try to charm me with your hard and insolent masculinity. You are the only one to think you're insolent and hard. You'd do anything for me in order to save your friend, even without spells at that. You'd pay any price, you'd lick my boots and maybe something else too if I unexpectedly wished to amuse myself." Yennefer then kissed Geralt and bit his lips, after which Geralt blacks out, and when he wakes up, he finds himself nodding to any command Yennefer gives him, even thanking her for allowing him to kiss her hand. Not long after, he wakes up in a dungeon along with Círdan. Apparently, while under Yennefer's spell, Geralt had gone around town finding the councilmen that had spoken ill of Yennefer and punished them for it. He went to the pawnbrokers and punched him in the teeth. When he fell, Geralt then proceeded to kick him several times in delicate places. The assistant that ran to help his master was thrown out the window. He then marched down to Laurelnose's house while shouting things about a lady's honor. He dragged Laurelnose out of his house and thrashed his arse with a belt. Guards showed up who Geralt also thrashed before moving on to the priest Crep. Geralt shouted several colorful insults at him before fainting. Círdan ran to defend Geralt when guards charged him, and so they both ended up in the dungeon. When guards enter the dungeon and start beating up Geralt, they ask if he has any last wishes. Geralt says he'd wish they'd burst, and so the guards started gobbling like a turkey and burst. Soon after, they're both called into the mayor's office, and while they talk, Dandelion bursts into the office too, yelling, "Innocence!" He then states, "My wish is for you to believe the Witcher is not guilty for what occurred. That and no other is my wish." Yennefer had made Dandelion make his last wish and now caught the djinn as it was about to leave for his own plane of existence. The mayor asks Geralt to go deal with the djinn, and so Geralt uses a shoddy portal created by the priest Crep, who was also present. Before stepping through the portal though, Geralt asks the priest what the exorcism he used really meant. Apparently it meant, "Get out of here and go fuck yourself." Geralt finds Yennefer in the inn, bent over a magical sphere. They start to argue over Geralt wanting to help her and Yennefer allowing it or not. The djinn then attempts to create a portal to get to Yennefer as he's located her. Yennefer in turn tries to open a portal for Geralt to escape through as she's quite unwilling to leave the djinn behind and flee. However, before she's able to do that, the djinn's portal opens and it attacks her. So Yennefer opens a random portal for Geralt to go through, but Geralt refuses to leave without her, so he grabs her and jumps through the portal with her. They land in a ballroom where Yennefer starts hurling abuse at Geralt because she nearly had it, and the Chamberlain then asks the pair if they had an invitation to the ball, to which Yennefer replied, "Screw yourself," and they leap back through the portal. When they get back to the inn, Yennefer threw a slew of curses at Geralt once more and proceeds to try and punch him. While they go about their business, Erdal's inn is getting thoroughly destroyed. Erdal himself is laughing hysterically at the situation because he just had the inn insured for a massive sum. Geralt then realizes that because he was the first one to hold the djinn's seal, it was him that could make the 3 wishes, not Dandelion. His first wish was for the djinn to get out of here and go fuck itself, in the form of an eloquent exorcism. The second was for the guard to burst, and Yennefer then demands he makes his third and final wish, and as they lay there thinking things over, he finally realized that before Yennefer was turned beautiful, as sorceresses are, she was a hunchback. He quickly tried to bury that thought, afraid that she might read his mind. Geralt then makes his final wish, for him and Yennefer to be bound together forever. This freed the djinn and it flew off. Erdal admired the ruins of his inn, and the mayor told the people Geralt sacrificed himself for the good of the town, and that he deserved a statue. Geralt and Yennefer, however, are not dead, and they wake up amidst the rubble of the inn and make love. Geralt also calls her Yen for the first time. No one's ever called her that before. Of course, nosy as they are, Dandelion, Erdal, and Círdan go to check on the pair as they are presumed dead. Círdan noticed them through a broken window, however, and told them, with a sad look on his face, that they should wait for them in an inn instead. Geralt and Yennefer then live together in Vengerberg for a time, about a year, until Geralt leaves again abruptly and doesn't see her for 4 years. While they stayed in her house, Geralt became acquainted with her impressive collection of things. including a phallus of unprecedented proportions, apparently from a mountain troll, and a magnificent stuffed unicorn upon whose back she liked to make love. Yennefer was wildly inventive when it came to that. There were also moments on the slope of a roof, in the hollow of a dead tree, on the balcony, and the balcony of others, the railing of a bridge, a canoe rocking unsteadily on a rushing stream, and lastly while levitating 30 fathoms above the ground. The unicorn, however, collapsed beneath them one day, ripped open, and broke into pieces. After those 4 years, Geralt runs into Yennefer again when he follows a group of dragon hunters along with Borg-3 jackdaws and his 2 Zerrikanian warrior women. The hunters are out hunting for a green dragon near Holopoli. King Nidamir decided he wanted the dragon's hoard, and so he gathered some dragon slayers. Ike of Denisle, the Crinfrid Reavers, Bohalt, Nishuka, and Kennet, and 6 dwarves including their commander, Yarp and Zigrin. The group was joined by a sorcerer by the name of Dorgarai as well. And of course, Yennefer turned out to be around as well. The group of dragon hunters strongly distrust and dislike Yennefer. When she joins the campfire site Geralt and the dragon hunters are sitting at, Yarpen and her quickly exchange unpleasantries. They bicker on about who will kill the dragon and yell that if Nidamir doesn't accept their proposal of sharing the dragon's treasure, they'll be out of there again. However, Yennefer assures them that the king has already accepted their proposal, against the advice of her and Dorgarai. More unpleasantries are exchanged, and Yennefer angrily stalks off to her tent. Geralt follows her, of course, and Yennefer demands to know why he's here, because it certainly isn't to hunt the dragon. Geralt tells her it's to see her, as he heard there was a sorceress involved in the dragon hunt. To which Yennefer replies coldly that he's only there for himself, but Geralt's just happy to see her. Yennefer gives him a snarky reply saying that she's happy to see him too, so now they're both content she's going to have a bath. Geralt calls her Yen, and she tells him not to call her that. After they were separated for 4 years, Yennefer has gotten over him. Yennefer refuses to forgive him for walking out on her the way he did. They get on the road to find the dragon. Dorgarai reveals himself as a monster activist and believes all monsters are good. They bicker back and forth a bit over monsters and their rights when Yennefer interrupts them, and her and Geralt exchange some more unpleasantries, as they disagree on the subject of killing dragons and whether it's wrong or not. Yennefer argues dragons threaten cities because they're the only monster large enough to destroy a city. Dorgarai fires back that it isn't monsters that threaten cities, but disease. He then makes an inappropriate joke about Yennefer's infertility and rides off. Yennefer is of course quite angry, and as she's left with only Geralt to unleash her fury upon, they exchange more unpleasantries. Geralt implies Yennefer is only there for the dragon's hoard and not, as she claims, because it's her duty to her people. This infuriates Yennefer further, of course, and she rides off. Geralt then decides to keep Yarpen and Dandelion company instead, and they all happily make fun of Yennefer. They eventually stop in front of a rickety bridge. It looks wildly unsafe, but they decide to try and cross over anyway, when a roar causes a landslide before they even cross. Yennefer gets caught in this landslide, and Geralt, playing the hero of course, goes back for her after nearly falling off his horse himself. The bridge is now thoroughly collapsed Indiana Jones style, and Geralt is only holding on by jamming his dagger between the wooden planks with one hand, while the other is still holding Yennefer. Dandelion calls for a rope as they'll likely fall soon, but Bohalt wants to wait a moment because Yennefer might fall soon, and that's a positive development in his eyes. Meanwhile, Geralt asks Yennefer for her forgiveness again, and Yennefer tells him to shut up again. Eventually though, they do get pulled up, of course, through use of a magical elven rope provided by Ike of Denisle. As they climb out of the ravine, Ike proclaims to the king, also with the company of course, that the entire party is blasphemous and must be purged or they would incur the wrath of the gods further. The only reason he saved Geralt and Yennefer from certain death is because of Yennefer, who is of course a lady, and he firmly believes she will one day break free of her blasphemous magic. Yennefer thanks him the Yennefer way, sarcastically, and tells Geralt to do the same, who, after some pressure from Yennefer, eventually does. Somewhat. But he also doesn't feel like hanging around Ike anymore, but as he prepares to leave, Kozoyet the shoemaker runs up to them, yelling he's seen the dragon. They rush down to find not the green dragon they were hunting, but a golden one. They decide to kill it even though it isn't the contracted dragon though. Dorgarai of course objects to them killing the dragon, but no one seems to care what he thinks. The dragon meanwhile makes no attempt to flee. In fact, the dragon announces through telepathy that his name is Villain Trettenmirth, and that they would be allowed to leave by 2 of 3 exits if they wished, and if they wanted to exit through the 3rd, they would have to duel him first. Yennefer warns the group that the dragon can read their minds. She then asks Geralt to kill the dragon for her. It's quite well known that Yennefer has a good amount of money at her disposal, so Geralt questions why she wants to kill a golden dragon. Surely not for his treasure. Yennefer tells him it's because she found someone who can help her reverse her infertility, but the operation is very costly. In exchange for a golden dragon, however, they won't be able to refuse her. She tells him she'll forgive him in spite of everything if he does this for her, but Geralt says he doesn't care anymore. He expected her to get angry. Really angry, but instead Yennefer's lip trembles and she turns away. Geralt regrets his words immediately. The other members of the dragon hunting party now bicker and argue over who gets to fight the dragon, and eventually ask the king what he wants, to which the king throws a tantrum and leaves. Dorgarai then again tries to stop the remaining hunters from attacking the dragon, and was again thwarted, this time by Yennefer. A fight commences and Geralt and Dandelion intervene when suddenly Yennefer paralyzes Geralt, Dorgarai, and Dandelion, then tells the other hunters to bind them. She then proceeds to order everyone to leave as she'll fight the dragon alone, so Yarpen struck her with a metal ball and tied her up too. They all laugh it up as they joke about who will get to rape her first after they're done with the dragons, as the green dragon was in a cave behind the golden dragon. Yennefer's shirt at this point is torn half open, and Dandelion can't help but ogle the half-naked sorceress and mentions he feels the need to write a ballad about a pair of tits. The dragon then got tired of waiting and started the fight himself, a fight he was winning spectacularly. After the Reavers got crushed, Yarpen yelled for the rest to run for the mountains. Then the vaunted militia of Holopoli arrived, and the golden dragon puts the little baby dragon he was guarding near the wagon with Geralt and the others. The small dragon then decides to cuddle up with Yennefer. The militia is getting the upper hand on the dragon when suddenly 2 Zerrikanian warriors showed up and cut them all to pieces. Meanwhile, Geralt burned through Yennefer's bonds with the Igni sign, and Yennefer then cast a spell on the militiamen's wagons as Dandelion cries out what a beautiful ballad this would be. Yennefer's spells turned most of the militiamen into animals of all sorts. The dragon turned back into Borg 3 jackdaws and told Vea, one of the Zerrikanian women, not to kill Yennefer. Geralt tells Yennefer he needs to talk to the dragon, and she asks to come with him. Yennefer had quietly decided to forgive him, and they kiss as villain Trettenmirth, now Borg again, approaches. They talk a while until Borg says, "Excuse my boldness and my frankness, Yennefer. It's written on your faces. I don't even need to read your thoughts. You are made for each other, you and the Witcher, but nothing will come of it. Nothing. I'm sorry." To which Yennefer replies, "I know, but I too would like to believe that there is no limit as to what's possible, or at least that this limit is very distant." A while after the dragon adventure, Geralt comes home to Yennefer after fighting a Zoogle. As you can imagine, he smells awful, so she tells him exactly that. She makes him a cold bath with seawater, which he refuses to heat up as she said that sort of spell was exhausting and made her sick. She then quotes the sorcerer Istred on some facts again, which Geralt hates because she talks about Istred a lot. When Geralt was done with his bath, Yennefer turned the water into a ball and threw it outside into a nearby bard who cursed her out for it. She then proceeded to examine Geralt's wounds and comb her hair before bed. Geralt loved to watch her do this and thought Yennefer probably knew that. When Geralt woke up again, there was a bird in the room. Yennefer said it was a magical kestrel she made herself because she needs it for something. When the kestrel flaps his wings and snaps his beak, Yennefer turns her head and sighs with great sadness, but won't tell Geralt what it was about. Yennefer later tells him a story about the city they're currently in, Edgenvale, roughly translated to Shard of Ice. The legend is basically a pretty way to dress up the Wild Hunt, and Geralt tells her so, to which Yennefer tells him he's not romantic at all. Later that day, Geralt goes to visit Istred, who informs him the only reason he invited him over was to let him know he proposed to Yennefer. Yennefer had answered she'd think about it. Istred basically tells Geralt to leave and go to hell so he can be with Yennefer. Geralt tells him to fuck off in so many words. They had an argument over who had more rights than the other, stated that Yennefer had slept with Geralt the previous night and this morning with Istred. When Yennefer comes back to Geralt, they talk about what happened. Yennefer says she doesn't feel guilty for sleeping with Istred, whose real name is Val. Istred is only a nickname. Istred calls her Yenna. Geralt says he won't stand in her way, and of course Yennefer flies into a fit, telling him she could do all kinds of terrible things to him if he was in fact in her way, and she could just walk away, just like he did from her house in Vengerberg. Geralt throws on the self-pity and calls himself a mutant, and Yennefer forbids him from ever using that word in her presence again. They continue arguing over what to do until Yennefer suddenly creates a second black kestrel, stating that she'll need 2 now. She asks what is the truth, and Geralt replies he doesn't know. The bird then speaks and tells them, the truth is a shard of ice. Geralt eventually goes to meet with Istred again, and they decide to duel over Yennefer's hand the next day. When they meet for the duel, Istred is carrying a sword. Geralt asks him why, as he is after all a sorcerer, and Istred told him Yennefer had sent him a note using the Black Kestrel, declining his offer. He did not wish to live without her. Geralt then refused to fight Istred, even though Istred yelled he'd never give up on Yennefer no matter what. But Geralt was already hurrying back to the inn, where he knew he would find a Black Kestrel with a letter, in which Yennefer would say her goodbyes to him also. A year, 2 months and 18 days after these events, Geralt meets Yennefer again, on Beltane, May Day. They run into each other during one of many Beltane celebrations. Yennefer insists they can't be together as it doesn't make sense, but she offers to sit down and talk somewhere instead of doing what one does at Beltane, which is sleep with whoever you want. They talk a while about each other, about Yennefer's wish to have a child. Eventually, of course, they make love anyway. Afterwards, Yennefer refers back to what the Golden Dragon had said. They won't work together. She tells him to go back to Sintra to find Ciri and not give up this time. When we next hear of Yennefer, it isn't through Geralt but through Dandelion. Rience, a Nilfgaardian spy, has caught Dandelion and is torturing him for information on Geralt and Ciri. Yennefer shows up and saves him from the torturers. Later, at an inn, Yennefer confides in Dandelion that she actually quite likes him now. She used to think he was worse than the plague. But she does ask him not to sing the Ballad of the Lion Cub of Sintra anymore. It's dangerous. She then also tells him Dijkstra sends his greetings and that he wants a report on what's being said at Erevol's court. Dijkstra also asks Yennefer to note that the report must be to the point this time and under no circumstances in verse. Dandelion then asks her why she never goes to Kaer Morhen anymore, where Geralt currently resides, to warn him of Rience. But Yennefer says Geralt doesn't like help imposed on him and then orders Dandelion to go back to Redania, to Tretogor, to stay with Dijkstra and Philippa Alhart, because his cover is blown. She finally tells him she's grateful to him for traveling with Geralt, so he wasn't always alone. Later, when Geralt runs into Yarp and Zigrin from the dragon hunt again, Yarpen tells Geralt he ran into Yennefer in Gorsvellen. She was not happy to see him, and as he fled, she shouted she'd catch up with him one day and make grass grow out of his arse. A while later again, we find Geralt on a barge, reading letters from Ciri and Yennefer. Yennefer's letter is exceptionally sarcastic, as Geralt opened his own letter to her with "Dear friend." That was a mistake. Yennefer writes back, "Dear friend, your unexpected letter, which I received not quite 3 years after we last saw each other, has given me such joy. My joy is all the greater as various rumors have been circulating about your sudden and violent death. It is a good thing that you have decided to disclaim them by writing to me. It is a good thing, too, that you are doing so soon. From your letter, it appears that you have lived a peaceful, wonderfully boring life, devoid of all sensation. These days, such a life is a real privilege, dear friend, and I am happy that you have managed to achieve it. I was touched by the sudden concern which you deigned to show as to my health, dear friend. I hasten with the news that, yes, I now feel well. The period of indisposition is behind me. I have dealt with the difficulties, the description of which I shall not bore you with. It worries and troubles me very much that the unexpected present you received from fate brings you worries. Your supposition that this requires professional help is absolutely correct. Although your description of the difficulty, quite understandably, is enigmatic, I am sure I know the source of the problem. And I agree with your opinion that the help of yet another magician is absolutely necessary. I feel honored to be the second to whom you turn. What have I done to deserve to be so high on your list? Rest assured, my dear friend, and if you had the intention of supplicating the help of additional magicians, abandon it because there is no need. I leave without delay and go to the place which you indicated in an oblique, yet to me understandable way. It goes without saying that I leave in absolute secrecy and with great caution. I will surmise the nature of the trouble on the spot and will do all that is in my power to calm the gushing source. I shall try, in doing so, not to appear any worse than other ladies to whom you have turned, are turning, or usually turn, with your supplications. I am, after all, your dear friend. Your valuable friendship is too important for me to disappoint you, dear friend. Should you, in the next few years, wish to write me, do not hesitate for a moment. Your letters invariably give me boundless pleasure. Your friend, Yennefer. The letter smelled of lilac and gooseberries. The letter, of course, was about Ciri, who then resided at the Temple of Melitele with Mother Nenneke. When Yennefer arrived at the temple, her and Nenneke quarrel quite a bit over how to treat Ciri and what to teach her. When Yennefer and Ciri first met, Ciri didn't like her. Ciri envied Yennefer for her beauty, but not for her terrifying eyes. Violet, deep as a fathomless lake, strangely bright, dispassionate and malefic. Yennefer calmly appraised Ciri as she stood before her, which infuriated Ciri, of course. She asks a few questions, like if Ciri has been sick at all, since she has been at Kaer Morhen, and, well, they like to give them potions. But Nenneke assures her they only ever gave her natural stimulants, to which Yennefer replies they're never natural and calls Geralt irresponsible. Nenneke then turns to Ciri and tells her Yennefer will watch over her now, and Ciri of course thinks she'll just run away that night. But Yennefer reads her mind and quietly whispers, "Indeed you will." Yennefer then says she'll have to file the claws of this Witcher girl. Nenneke then tells her Ciri is not her rival, and Yennefer laughs, saying Nenneke is always on Geralt's side, to which Nenneke retorts that Yennefer is always against him. They argue back and forth a bit more, and Yennefer smiles at Ciri. Despite her anger and annoyance, Ciri smiles back because Yennefer's smile was unexpectedly pleasant, friendly and sincere, and very, very beautiful. Yennefer and Nenneke eventually agree on things, and Yennefer starts teaching Ciri the basics of magic. Ciri and Yennefer argue quite a lot because Ciri doesn't want to be taught by Yennefer at all. But Yennefer, being Yennefer, doesn't take no for an answer and casts a few spells on her to get her cooperation. She tells Ciri she's only here because Geralt asked her to. Ciri is annoyed no one asked her, so Yennefer asks her. Ciri says she's not cut out to be a sorceress, and Yennefer notes her staring at her necklace a lot and asks if it's unusual or just jealousy. The stones Yennefer wears are active diamonds sunken in obsidian in the form of a star medallion. Ciri says she needs a moment to think about doing the tests Yennefer proposed, so Yennefer tells her to sit down next to her, and after a moment passes she asks Ciri again if she's thought about it. Ciri yells she needs more time than that, but Yennefer states the night will only bring more nightmares, and Ciri agrees to do the tests. Yennefer works with Ciri to discover and control her abilities. While they do this, Yennefer demands from Ciri absolute obedience and absolute sincerity. Ciri asks if that works both ways, and Yennefer decides that it does. So Ciri immediately asks what's up with her and Geralt. Yennefer puts her hands on Ciri's shoulders and answers, longing, regret, hope, and fear. She then calls Ciri her ugly one, and Ciri asks why, to which Yennefer answers she promised to be sincere. Ciri still tries to convince Yennefer she's not cut out for the sorcerer's life, but Yennefer will have none of it and continues her tests. Some of her tests are rather peculiar, like draw a pine tree. Ciri asks Yennefer if she's laughing at her, but Yennefer states that she rarely laughs, however, and she needs to have a very good reason to laugh. But she gets angry just as rarely as she laughs. They do some more boring tests, and Ciri says she misses the fresh air and moving, so they go out and run while Yennefer still teaches Ciri theory lessons. Ciri asks when the tests are done because she'd like to know if she's cut out to be a sorceress now. Yennefer says she is, and that she already knew that when Ciri detected the activity of her star medallion. Very few can. Ciri doesn't believe her and asks if she's sure, to which Yennefer states that from the moment they lay down in the meadow they were in, they'd been communicating telepathically. Sometime after, Yennefer takes Ciri to a monolith, which stands on the crossing of veins of power, pulsating with force. She wants Ciri to show her her dream, so they dream together. Ciri's dream is about the prophecy of the end time, about her own death and that of Yennefer and Geralt. When she wakes up from the nightmare, she calls Yennefer mother. Yennefer then endeavors to stop Ciri's nightmares and teach her magic. She tells Ciri never to wear adornments made of metal, crystals, or stones. They also have a little chat about virginity and how you're supposed to know who should be your first. Yennefer explains that first you look at how good their bed looks. If he has no bed at all, the candidate is eliminated on the spot. From the remaining men, you eliminate the ones with dirty or slovenly beds, and when only the clean and tidy beds remain, you choose the one you find most attractive. and even then you can make a mistake. Yennefer then proceeds to tell Ciri she's sleeping in Yennefer's room from now on. As time goes on, Yennefer and Ciri get along better. Yennefer asks Ciri about the time she and Geralt met in Brokilon. She says she'd have loved to see Geralt's face when he found out who Ciri really was. So Ciri imitates his face and Yennefer bursts out laughing. Yennefer later teaches Ciri about intersections and drawing power from them as well. They go to find one and Ciri asks if it's okay to draw from it because she doesn't want to use it all up. Yennefer kisses her on the head and says she wished others could hear her words. Those who believe they have the exclusive right to the Force and can use it unreservedly. Ciri hurts herself while drawing on the source and Yennefer tries to comfort her and calls her daughter. Yennefer also tries to teach her some basic spells and to properly control the Force. It causes Ciri a lot of pain, but Yennefer tells her not to cry. Nothing is more pathetic than a crying sorceress. When Ciri casts a spell on her own for the first time, she blows a wooden shack away on the temple grounds. Yennefer assures Nenneke it was nothing and it'll make good firewood. Yennefer tells Ciri she became a sorceress when she passed the preliminary exams at 13 years old as Ciri was right now. She lost her virginity at 16, as Ciri asks, and then Ciri also asks how old she was when she met Geralt, and Yennefer replies, older. A bit older. Ciri then finally asks why she still calls her Ugly One when she knows she doesn't like it. Yennefer replies it's because she's malicious. Sorcerers are always malicious. She asks if she can one day be as pretty as Yennefer with magic, but Yennefer says she's very lucky. She's already very pretty. Her very pretty little ugly one. Then Ciri asks why Geralt hasn't come to visit. Yennefer says he's forgotten her and found a prettier girl. Ciri knows that's not true though, and Yennefer states it's good that she knows. She's a lucky ugly one. While around the temple grounds, Yennefer likes to telepathically call Ciri whenever she needs her. On one such day, when she orders her to her side, she tells Ciri to take a bath and notes she's turning into a young woman now. So she shouldn't toy with boys. It's base. She then tells her they have to leave now because of the war. Ciri is reminded of her grandmother's death and chokes up, so Yennefer hugs her tightly and calls her my ugly one again. Ciri says she doesn't want to see another war ever again. She wants to stay with Yennefer and Geralt, always. Yennefer says she will always be with her. It's a promise. They quietly leave the temple at night. Only Mother Nenneke is there to say goodbye. At the end of the last video, Yennefer and Ciri had just left the Temple of Melitele. When we meet Yennefer and Ciri again, they're traveling through to the Conference of Wizards, which takes place on the island of Thanet in Garstang at the beginning of July. Yennefer wasn't using any magic because that way no one could trace her. Right before Yennefer and Ciri arrive at Gorsvellen, the city connected to Thanet, they come across Scoia'tael corpses strapped to 9 poles. The corpses are mutilated quite horribly, and Yennefer notes the irony in this as sorcerers were forbidden to practice necromancy on account of respect for the majesty of death and remains deserving reverence, peace, and ceremonial burial. As they get closer to the gates of Gorsvellen, Yennefer tells Ciri to take the reins so she can make her mirror float magically and fix her looks. Ciri wants to make herself look pretty too, but Yennefer tells her to quickly cover up as she has to stay hidden, to which Ciri notes that people noticing Yennefer will surely make them notice her too. However, Yennefer says she doubts anyone will even remember her as she puts on some glamour, a magical ointment for special occasions, which makes anyone using it appear incredibly beautiful. When they arrive at the gates, no one even looks at Ciri as they all have their eyes fixed on Yennefer, whose eyes and face radiated with beauty. No one asks any questions either, as Yennefer is a well-known sorceress and Gorsvellen owes its prosperity in big parts to the sorceresses. Yennefer and Ciri quarrel quite a bit as the subject of Aretuza comes up again. Aretuza is the sorcerer school Yennefer intends to send Ciri to, but Ciri doesn't want to go at all. They stop at a bank run by a dwarf by the name of Giancardi Molnar, a good friend of Yennefer as she once saved Molnar and his entire family from a pogrom in Vengerberg. Yennefer asks him if he has any letters for her, which he does not. However, he tells her that the Bank of Vivaldi had informed him recently that there was an attempt made to track her last letters. Their branch in Vengerberg had discovered an attempt to keep track on the history of her account as well. As her accounts are no longer safe, Yennefer instead asks Molnar to lend her 1500 Temerian orens and transfer it to the Cianfanelli Bank on Ellender for the Temple of Melitele. Of course she has unlimited credit with Molnar on account of the pogrom. She then asks about the current tuition fee for Aretuza as well, which totaled about 1400 Novigrad crowns altogether. She then asks him to transfer another 2,000 Novigrad crowns into the account of Aretuza, anonymously with a note that it's all for the matriculation and tuition fee for one student, Ciri. Finally, she needs 300 Novigrad crowns to buy at least 3 dresses for the Thanet conference. Molnar gives her a check for 500 crowns instead, as he knows her taste is expensive. He refuses to let her pay her debts later again, on accounts of saving his family, but Yennefer doesn't like debts like that though. Molnar then notes that Geralt recently visited Dorian and took a loan for 100 crowns. He says he can erase that debt, but Yennefer tells him not to do that, as she doubts she is still dear to Geralt. And if he hears about the erased debt, he will hate her even more, as he's obsessed with honor. Molnar says that Geralt rode to Hirundum to kill a monster as we speak. Yennefer notes he'll likely be paid next to nothing again, and asks the dwarf to contact the peasants that put up the notice to raise the reward a bit. To which Molnar asks her what she'll do when he finally figures out it's been Yennefer all this time, making sure he makes enough of a living to keep going. To which Yennefer only asks, "Pray tell, who will break it to him?" He finally asks if Yennefer plans to accidentally stop by Hirundum before heading to Thanet, but she will not. Molnar then suggests to let Ciri have a walk around town a bit, and he calls a human boy called Fabio Sachs Jr. into the office to escort Ciri around. Yennefer gives Ciri a tiny chrysoprase, a gemstone, marked with runes and shaped like an hourglass. Just in case anyone recognizes Ciri, it's to be used with a spell, but Yennefer tells her not to use it near anyone that is sensitive to magic or she'll reveal herself. She also gives her a bit of spending money to use as she pleases. Fabio turned out to be a head shorter than Ciri, and Yennefer questions his capability, but thankfully he convinces her otherwise with some exceptionally smooth talking. As it turns out, Ciri has had to use Yennefer's spell, and she was found by Margarita Loantil, the headmaster of Aretuza, and Tessaya de Vries. They take her back to Yennefer, and when they find out that she's with her, they apologize profusely to Yennefer, but not to Ciri. They spend some time together in a bath and sauna room where Yennefer tells Margarita to let Ciri start from the beginning with the other novices, even though she already knows the basics. Suddenly an officer was announced for an audience with Tessaya, and Tessaya calls the officer into the room to speak. As they were all in the sauna, they were only covered by towels, so Margarita and Yennefer slyly winked at each other, removed their towels, and adopted a highly challenging position, then waited for the officer to enter while holding back their laughter. Tessaya called them children and told Ciri to cover herself. Unfortunately, the officer turned out to be a woman named Rayla. She was serving the special forces of King Damavend as a captain. When Yennefer spoke to Rayla, Margarita noticed hostility in her voice. Yennefer tells her about the mutilated Scoia'tael corpses along the roadside. They were Rayla's idea, her and her special forces. Yennefer thinks they're a band of sadists. Margarita retorts that Rayla has likely seen more than one of her comrades in arms hung by their wrists in the trees as a target for arrows too. Blinded, castrated, with their feet burned in bonfires. It was war after all. Yennefer states though that wars are won by people who would sacrifice themselves for their country and freedom. Rayla and hers would not sacrifice themselves for anyone. They pick up their casual banter again when Rayla leaves, and Yennefer and Margarita talk about Margarita's ex, Lars, who she broke up with recently. She calls Yennefer Yenna and called it Elaine Dedat, beautiful end, as the elves say. And that was partially why Margarita wanted to get drunk. Lars was already married though, while he loved Margarita, but he wanted monogamy and Margarita gags at the thought of it. She then brings up a conversation her and Yennefer had in Vengerberg. Yennefer had just broken up with Geralt at that point too. Yennefer is in no mood to talk about it though, and they ask for another 2 pitchers of wine, so they send Ciri to get some. Ciri takes the opportunity to flee, and she gave the innkeep a letter for Yennefer. Lady Yennefer, forgive me, I'm going to Hirundum because I want to see Geralt. I want to see him before going to school. Forgive my disobedience, but I have to do it. I know you will punish me, but I will not regret the indecision and hesitation. If I have to regret, let it be by action and decision. I am a sorceress. Grab life by the horns. I'll be back as soon as I can. Ciri. P.S. Tell Mrs. Rita that the school will not have to wipe my nose. Yennefer cursed such a foul curse the innkeeper blushed and his mouth fell open. A while later, as Ciri is chased by the wild hunt and gallops towards Geralt, Yennefer materializes before their eyes. Dandelion describes her face as the face of fury and rage, the face of the goddess of vengeance, destruction and death. She raised her hand and shouted a spell. A spiral of sparks poured from her hands towards the wild hunt, and Dandelion thought he heard the cries of ghosts as he saw nightmarish silhouettes of spectral horses. Ciri was safe. She apologized to Geralt and Yennefer, then pretended to pass out as she didn't know who to walk to first. In the morning, Geralt and Yennefer had a little private talk, so Ciri eavesdropped, of course. Dandelion caught her doing just that and told her that Yennefer knew she had fake passed out, but Geralt didn't. They brought Ciri into the house together and their hands touched. Then they sat next to her bed until dawn without speaking. Now Ciri observed Geralt and Yennefer. Geralt stood there in silence with his head bowed. Dandelion explains Geralt is asking her for her forgiveness, for his various foolish words and actions. He apologizes for his impatience, lack of faith and hope, his stubbornness, his viciousness, his anger and attitude which is unworthy for a man. He apologizes for what he once did not understand, apologizes for what he understands only now. For he wants to understand, but is afraid that he does not have time. And what they have, he'll never understand. He apologizes and asks for forgiveness. Ciri stamps her feet and says that can't be true as Geralt is mostly standing there silently. When she looks again, Yennefer is yelling at Geralt loudly, waving her arms. Dandelion explains that now she's apologizing to him. Afterwards, Yennefer invites Geralt to join her at the banquet at the eve of the Conference of Wizards. Geralt had accepted, of course, even though on previous occasions he'd refused as he was afraid he'd be looked at as a freak or a pariah. And even though she laughed off his fears, she didn't insist, and as usually she could be so insisting that the whole house shook and creaked, this only confirmed Geralt's suspicions. But they had set aside former conflicts and gotten back together, so he agreed to join her. When they arrived, there was nowhere to sit, so he whined to Yennefer about it, that and the cold, lack of music and proper food. Yennefer informed him that standing still near the food tables too long was a breach of etiquette. So was drinking a lot, avoiding small talk, and standing at the entrance. Pointing at the Witcher, however, was only a very tiny breach of etiquette. The convention consisted mostly of fake people doing fake things and pretending to like each other. So Yennefer pulled Geralt into the center of the hall, clearly putting him on display a bit, and although etiquette forbade the use of magic on some occasions, that didn't stop anyone here. Some women were even trying to read his mind, but he looked at Yennefer, who was looking marvelously beautiful, and the witches stopped reading as his thoughts turned only to her. Yennefer also read his mind. So while they were putting crabs on a plate, Geralt told Yennefer for the first time, "I love you, Yen." Until then, he'd only ever thought it, not said it, which makes a huge difference. Yennefer says it back to him, so Geralt nearly chokes on a crab. He is not, however, allowed to kiss Yennefer in public. Then Sabrina Glevissig shows up, an old schoolmate of Yennefer. They wore identical earrings. The atmosphere quickly cooled. They proceeded to fight quietly during the conversation over who could make their earrings more noticeable. Sabrina jabs at Yennefer, telling her about a wonderful cream to fight wrinkles she could offer her. Yennefer coolly states that she doesn't need it. All the while, Sabrina was clearly flirting with Geralt, and as she was wearing transparent cloth, you could see practically everything. Geralt was a little distracted by that, so Yennefer got annoyed and quickly pulled him away to talk to Philippa Eilhart instead. Yennefer unloads some of her anger about Sabrina onto Philippa, and Yennefer notes that Sabrina is years older than her as well. Not long after that, Yennefer rushes off to speak with Triss, who wore sparkly shades of blue and aquamarine. Ciri comes up in their conversation as well, and Triss says that she'd like to see her, to which Yennefer tells her that if she would finally start teaching at Aretuza, she could see her every day. At that point though, the chapter and the highest council arrive. Yennefer points out who's who to Geralt, and it is noted that, although they were already there, Philippa and Yennefer are both also on the council. Yennefer has been since the Battle of Sodden. Yennefer then sends Geralt off to fetch some wine, so she can speak privately with Triss. Clearly about Triss and Geralt's little tryst. Triss is already gone when Geralt comes back, but Yennefer assures him they remain good friends. Afterwards, Yennefer needs to leave to speak with Tissaia and Francesca, but first, Geralt is allowed to kiss her in public, as long as he minds the lip gloss. She then leaves after telling Geralt not to eat any garlic for later. Yennefer returns to find Geralt in the middle of a conversation with Kira Metz and Marty Sodergren. She does the usual Yennefer thing to scare them off and tells Geralt Vilgefortz wants to speak with him later. And after Geralt has his little talk with Vilgefortz, they stay the night in Aretuza and spend most of it making love and waking up the neighbors. At one point, Yennefer reads Geralt's mind as he's thinking about building a house with his own hands where they could live together. He would raise horses and sheep and she would take care of the garden and food. They'd take the wool to the market and from the money they'd buy a little copper kettle and an iron rake, and every so often they would visit Ciri with her husband and 3 children. Sometimes Triss would come and stay a few days, and they would grow old with dignity. If Yennefer got bored at night, Geralt would play the bagpipes, made with his own hands, as everyone knows that bagpipes are the best remedy for the blues. They made love again and Yennefer screamed so loudly the neighbors reacted by both foaming at the mouth and applauding. The next day, after many eventful events had already been happening, at the meeting at Garstang, Yennefer shows up with Ciri. The meeting involved 2 sides of sorcerers. One side wanted to side with Nilfgaard, the other with the North. Yennefer was sent there with Ciri by Tissaia because they thought that perhaps a prophecy done by Ciri would give the 2 parties pause so there would not be any fighting. They were wrong. When Ciri prophesied, she only told them of Lyria and Edirn attacking Nilfgaard, and Nilfgaard retaliating, and of course, of the assassination of King Vizimir. It fueled the fire even further. Tissaia at that point lifted the magical blockade that was keeping everyone from casting spells and all hell broke loose. Ciri awakens from her trance and asks Yennefer why she was there. Yennefer only said that she made a mistake, and tells her to go down the stairs, take the horse waiting there, and run. As Ciri leaves, Yennefer shouts, "I love you, my daughter. Run." When we hear of Yennefer again, we find out that in the confusion of the battle at Garstang, Francesca Findabair had seen fit to compress Yennefer and kept her around as a necklace to keep Rience and Vilgefortz from finding and painfully murdering her. Decompression was extremely painful as well, however, so Yennefer wasn't at all pleased to wake up in Dol Blathanna, naked and trembling, and most of all in severe pain. Francesca tells her that it was necessary to keep her compressed this long, because now when the spies came to Dol Blathanna asking about Yennefer, she could truthfully answer that she wasn't, as she was a figurine, not a Yennefer. Yennefer then asks her about Geralt, of course, and Francesca tells her what happened at Thanet, and that both Yennefer and Geralt are now being hunted by Dijkstra. Yennefer makes some sarcastic remarks on why Francesca decided to decompress her now, but Francesca tells her about the Lodge of Sorceresses that was in the process of being formed at this time, and that she'd like Yennefer to join the meeting tonight. Yennefer makes several more sarcastic remarks regarding this sudden promotion into the lodge, and asks why her and not instead another elf of Dol Blathanna or the Blue Mountains. Of course, it's about Ciri, who Yennefer knows like no other, and the lodge is quite interested in her. When Yennefer is informed the lodge only consists of women, she calls it the International Republic of Females, sarcastically. Yennefer doesn't like the sound of the lodge much, especially involving Ciri, and Francesca asks her to promise not to try and flee to find Geralt and Ciri, but Yennefer can't give her that promise, even when she's threatened with compression again. Yennefer does eventually join Francesca Findabair and Ida Emain ap Sivney at the lodge meeting. She's met with several snarky remarks regarding Thanet and betrayal and so forth, but nothing more. Yennefer recognizes Fringilla Vigo, who is also there, because she was at Sodden Hill also. The lodge, as it turns out, wants to marry Ciri to the heir of Kovir. Because Ciri is a sorceress, but not a known one, she's of noble birth and she can still give birth to an heir. They ask Yennefer to explain all she knows of Ciri so far, and as she does, Triss notices how tired and sick Yennefer looked. As Yennefer's story ends, the sorceresses start to quarrel about Garstang and Thanet again. Yennefer insists it was Tissaia of Rhys who ordered her to bring Ciri to Garstang. She didn't want to interfere in what was happening at Aretuza, she wanted to take Ciri and escape from Thanet. But Tissaia convinced her that the appearance of Ciri at Garstang would be a shock to many, and her prophecy would avert the conflict. When the lodge takes a short break from yelling at each other, Triss tries to comfort Yennefer by telling her Geralt was probably fine. But Yennefer could see her blush every time she spoke of Geralt. When Triss leaves and Yennefer casually eats some oysters, Fringilla Vigo approaches her. Yennefer coolly responds to her chatter until Fringilla notes that they should probably discuss the escape Yennefer is planning. Fringilla discreetly gives Yennefer the information she needs to be able to teleport out of the lodge, even with Philippa's protecting spells in place, by using the seawater of the oysters as a focus point. And so, Yennefer escapes. No one noticed as the Star of Obsidian masks the casting of spells. The lodge of course erupts in discussion over how this could happen, but most don't think she left to betray them. Asir is well aware that Fringilla helped Yennefer escape. Yennefer meanwhile had cast a spell teleporting her right into the sea. She swam to the Skellige Islands and found allies there. She was determined to track down Vilgefortz, who she thought had Ciri. People from all over now thought Yennefer had died, due to the stories of some Skellige fishermen. Yennefer, however, resided safely in Caer Trolde, the main fortress of Ardskellig. She was waiting as dragon boats sailed into Ardskellig. One of the other women waiting was pregnant and the excitement got too much for her, and she fell to the ground. Yennefer quickly rushed over and used her magic to make sure she didn't go into labor right there on the terrace. When the woman was carried away, Yennefer stifled a curse as she realized her kneeling to help the woman had caused her expensive dress to burst at the seam. The dragon boats then landed and Yennefer quickly sought out Jarl Kragan Crate, who, when he noticed her, was less than pleased to see her. He told her that even though the Skellige Isles often granted asylum to people persecuted by law, this would not be the case for Yennefer, because he hated her. He still believed that she was working with Nilfgaard and Vilgefortz, and so he demanded justice for the dead. She would be put on a boat to Novigrad and judged by the city government there, and of Temeria and Redania, whoever reaches her first. Yennefer then tried to tell him she was innocent, but Krak wouldn't hear of it. He also tells her not to use her magic, and while Yennefer gives him her word, she also tells him that she does not intend to get on the boat tomorrow. She has no time to prove to Dijkstra that she is innocent, and she can't risk dying a mysterious death shortly after her arrest. She then reminds Krak of the oath he made to the Lion Cub of Sintra 10 years ago, to never leave her unaided. She asks him to keep that oath now. And so, a while later, they have dinner together. Yennefer will not touch any of the seafood, as it reminds her a little too much of Fringilla Vigo, Philippa Eilhart, and her risky sea teleportation. They argue a little over Yennefer's perceived innocence, and she insists Krak believe her, even though he feels it's unnecessary for him to believe her. Eventually, he agrees to believe her anyway, because he wants to. Krak then informs her that her Witcher, as he calls Geralt, has set out to Nilfgaard to free Ciri. But Yennefer states that he will not be able to save Ciri. He'll get caught up, lost in his own philosophizing, and wallow in self-pity. He'll vent his anger and hack at anyone and anything he comes across. Then he'll do some grand but pointless deed. In the end, he'll be slain, stupidly and needlessly, most likely by a stab in the back. Yennefer's voice changed and trembled strangely. Yennefer then says she does not intend to sit around and cry, but to act. So Krak points to his dragon boats, but Yennefer doesn't need courage and manliness. The help she needed can be converted into currency. For what Yennefer was planning, she needed a lot of money, but also a large diamond. The jeweler on Ardskellig noted that a diamond of the size she required did not exist, but Yennefer objected and said there is one, in a temple in Hindarsfjall. However, Krak does not know whether a request to use the diamond would be granted. As Krak can't do much here, it's up to Yennefer to try and convince the priestesses who had the diamond to give it to her. Krak suggests that she negotiate, argue, bribes, appeal to ambition, appeal to their common professions, cry despairingly, twist into convulsions, and excite pity. In all, act like a monkfish. But Yennefer states that a priestess and a sorceress would never find common ground. They would not allow her to use a holy relic or artifact, but Yennefer needs the diamond to build a megascope. They eventually went to visit the temple, and Krak asked to see the leader of the temple, Modron Sigdrifa. When they entered the temple, they were greeted by a statue of Modron Freya, the Great Mother, who wore a diamond embedded in a golden necklace. It was huge. Soon after, they were greeted by Sigdrifa. Yennefer thought she had seen her somewhere recently, but couldn't quite pinpoint where. Sigdrifa reminded her that she was at the seaport at Caer Trolde when Yennefer helped the pregnant woman, without worrying about her very expensive camlet dress. She then asked Krak to leave them alone for a moment so they might speak. Yennefer asks her to use the Brisingamen, the large diamond, for just a while. Sigdrifa is taken aback by the request and also states that it's impossible. The diamond is connected with the statue, there is no clasp to remove it. Yennefer gloomily states that she needs a diamond to create a megascope, and so she says her goodbye. But Sigdrifa stops her and asks her to pray with her to find Ciri, to ask the goddess for help. Yennefer has to stop herself from cursing, but she agrees, for Ciri. The prayers simply involved kneeling and putting their heads down, motionless, silent. But Yennefer thought to herself that these prayers did in fact work on occasion, although it is still a mystery how. Sigdrifa then came to Yennefer as she had just fallen asleep, and takes her outside to see the Aurora Borealis in August. And Sigdrifa asked her if she would be willing to sacrifice herself and her magic for Ciri. Yennefer tells her not to treat her like a child and refuses to answer the question because she does not believe in her goddess. Sigdrifa then maliciously replies that a time will come when no one, absolutely no one, except children, will believe in witches. Yennefer insists that all of this was an illusion. The woman, Yennefer was now unsure who it was, had golden eyes and wore a diamond embedded in a necklace. She asks Yennefer to come with her, but Yennefer still insists this is all an illusion. They are suddenly in a plain, a sea of grass. The woman tells Yennefer that she has asked for her jewel, but she cannot give it to her without making sure of certain things beforehand. She wants to see what's inside Yennefer, and that is why she brought her here, which has been a place of knowledge and power from time immemorial. The woman continues, Yennefer believes in chaos, art and science, curses, blessings and progress, but not faith, love or sacrifice. The woman then asks Yennefer what side she will choose when the Naglfar comes, light or dark. But Yennefer says that these are just symbols. There is a little of light and darkness in each, and she would not convert to mysticism. Yennefer then felt the earth slip away under her feet and felt a monstrous force twist her arms and break the joints in her shoulders and elbows as the strappado torture stretched. She screamed in pain, writhing. This was no dream, it couldn't be. She was on a tree, hanging crucified on the branches of a huge ash tree. Above her a hawk circled, and on the ground in the darkness she heard a hissing snake. Next to her hung another, a scoia'tael. "Are you ready now?" asked the squirrel. "Are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to sacrifice?" Yennefer shouted that she had nothing, and even if she had, she did not believe in the meaning of such sacrifice. She didn't want to suffer for millions. She did not want to suffer at all for anybody. The scoia'tael replied with, "No one wants to suffer, but that is the fate of each. And some suffer more, not necessarily of their own volition. It's not about enduring the suffering, it's about how you endure it." Yennefer then has a flashback of her youth. Her father shouts to take that hunched-backed monster away from him, Yennefer. Her mother then states that she is his daughter as well as hers, but the father insinuates that she is not his daughter at all, and says there were sorceresses in her elven family. She aborted her first pregnancy, and so it follows that her elf blood and womb are spoiled. They argue over what to do with her. Yennefer shouts, "Dad! Mama!" only to be answered by a slap from the father and a "Go away, you monster!" Her mother tells him to stop, and the father leaves to his mistress. Her mother cries and pushes Yennefer away when she asks why she's crying. "Why did you hit me and push me away?" Yennefer asks. "I was good." The squirrel asks if she is able to forgive, and Yennefer states that she has long since forgiven, but only after she avenged only too well. And she's not sorry. She then cries out that she is guilty, but she will not beg for mercy. She killed her own father and once self-mutilated as well. But she had her reasons, and she has no regrets. Even if she could turn back time, she has no regrets. The hawk then lands on her shoulder and says, "The Tower of the Swallow. Hasten to the Tower of the Swallow, daughter." Yennefer then dreams of Ciri riding a black mare. Blood flows and gushes from her face. Ciri shoots out a glowing sphere and a unicorn is shown, pawing in the gravel with his hoof. Then many unicorns and fire. Geralt on a bridge in a fight, in a fire. The flames reflected on his sword blade, Fringilla Vigo, her head on a book but only a fragment of the title. Reflections on the inevitable death of... Geralt's eyes reflected in the eyes of Fringilla. An abyss, smoke, a flight of stairs that lead down. Darkness and moisture, intensely cold stone walls, the coldness of the iron on the wrists and ankles. The pain that pulsates in tortured hands, tears at bruised fingers. Ciri holds her hand as they walk a long, dark corridor with many doors, and at the end a door that does not open automatically like all the others. It must not be opened. Ciri can still turn back, but for Yennefer it's too late. Yennefer then wakes up. Sigdrifa is standing over her and takes her to the statue of the goddess. Brisingamen, the sacred jewel of modern Freya, lies at her feet. Yennefer informs Crag of what happened and that she intends to set up her workshop on Hindarsfjall instead. Crag tells her to hurry up as more messages had reached him. The enemy knew she might be on the Skellige Isles. Crag was told to jail her immediately when found and to extort information from war prisoners on her whereabouts. If they found her on the Isles, Crag would be in trouble. Yennefer says she's trying to work as fast as she can, but Crag grins and says he's not afraid of them either way, and he's working under oath, of course. In the meantime, Yennefer had been communicating with several sorcerers, and she was paying them large sums of gold, likely for information. A while later, when she goes to visit Crag, she tells him that she knows someone has been eavesdropping on her conversations, or that one of the sorcerers she spoke with told others of Yennefer. And so she planned to go to the Sedna depths as a challenge, a provocation. She didn't want any of the Skelligers to run the risk, so volunteers only. So she needed 2 dragon boats to carry all of them. One of the volunteers was Crag's own son, Hjalmar, only 19 years old. Before they left, Yennefer contacted Triss, however. When Yennefer established contact, she asked Triss if they could talk freely, if she was alone. Triss says it was, and they were alone, but Yennefer knew she was lying. She could tell by her face because it was the same face she had when she started sleeping with Geralt behind Yennefer's back. And of course, Philippa Eilhart appeared in the window next to Triss. Yennefer wanted to know who betrayed her, but Philippa wouldn't tell, just one of the people she blackmailed. Yennefer tells them that she does not intend to reveal the plans of the lodge to anyone, but Philippa states that as she fled from Monte Calvo from the lodge meeting, she made her decision. If she is not with the lodge, she is against it. Yennefer did not want to let the lodge use Ciri for their political purposes. This was now war. Yennefer only had one request really. In the event of her death, to make sure she gained back her reputation and good name. That she will no longer be held for a traitor or an accomplice of Vilgefortz. But Philippa denied her request. It was not in the interest of the lodge. She must die a traitor, because that way it'll be easier to manipulate Ciri. Triss then asks Yennefer to leave them something if she does die, so they can continue their search for Ciri. She tells Yennefer of what Dijkstra had found in one of Vilgefort's hideouts. But Philippa barks at Triss to be quiet. Yennefer said she would leave them a trail, but if they would not exonerate her in the eyes of the world, then to at least do so in the eyes of Geralt. Philippa denied her request almost instantly. Geralt is also to know her only as a traitor. If he despises her, he will not attempt to avenge her. And anyway, he was likely to die soon regardless. So Yennefer bargained again. The information for his life. She asked Philippa to save Geralt. Again, Philippa denied her. Because it is not in the interest of the lodge, Yennefer stated. A purple fire kindled in her eyes. Did you hear that, Triss? There you have your lodge. You see their true colors, their true interests. And what do you think of them? You were a mentor to the girl. Almost, as you put it, a big sister. And Geralt. But Philippa cuts her off. If Yennefer could find Ciri, she'd be happy. It'd save her a lot of trouble. And Geralt? Who cares about Geralt? Did you hear that, Triss? Yennefer asked. Forgive me, Yennefer, Triss said. Oh no, Triss. Never. Yennefer sailed on the 28th of August. 2 weeks after, Crag had still not heard from her. 5 days after they sailed, only one boat returned, without her. Asa Chazi, one of the captains, reported to Crag that Yennefer had called for volunteers. Yennefer insisted only 8 come though, as this mission was more dangerous than any other. They were to go aboard the Alcyone, one of the boats, while everyone else remained on the Tamara, the other boat. She commanded Hjalmar to stay, and soon after that, a devilish storm broke loose on the Alcyone, and soon after that, there was no trace of the ship to be seen. It had disappeared at the same place as Pavetta and Duny. When Yennefer awoke, she was surrounded by the corpses of the Skelligers. She was awoken by a kick from Rience. She tried to cast a spell but couldn't. Vilgefortz had taken her power from her. So she jumped at Rience with a dagger in hand, but missed. Immediately she was assaulted by a hail of punches and kicks. She was mercilessly, violently, cruelly beaten. She wanted to faint, but couldn't. Eventually Vilgefortz intervened. He needed her alive. Vilgefortz explained that it was his spell that lifted up the boat and shattered it. He asked her some questions, but she merely told him to go to hell. So he ordered her obsidian star necklace destroyed and dragged her to the laboratory. There she was brutally placed in a steel chair. Cold clamps closed painfully on her wrists and ankles. A vice was fixed to her temples. Yennefer observed what she could in the laboratory and noticed another chair. A strange steel structure on a stone pedestal. Vilgefortz saw her look and explained it was for Ciri. He was wearing a mask covering half his face, which he now removed. He pointed at his face and noted that was the work of Ciri. He had lost an eye in his left cheek along with a lot of skin on his face, neck and chest. A multifaceted crystal was now placed in the left eye socket. As he lamented the loss of his face, he pushed a curved metal tube into Yennefer's nose. He goes on to say that when he catches Ciri, he'll order Rience to immediately remove one of her eyes too, with his fingers. Yennefer was silent. Vilgefortz noted that he also wanted to tear out one of her eyes, or maybe both. He pushed thick needles into the veins at the top of her hands. Sometimes he missed the mark, hitting bone instead. Yennefer gritted her teeth. Vilgefortz continues to explain he is happy Yennefer sailed to his hideout as he couldn't find Ciri, not even with his super order. But now that he could link Yennefer to his order, he might find her. He continued pushing tubes up Yennefer's nose and linking silver and copper wires around, as he explained that he needed someone with a strong emotional connection to Ciri to make the order work. He thought of Geralt, but he had vanished and witches are unsuitable regardless. And then he thought of Triss or Nenneke, but Yennefer then volunteered. Liquid began to flow through the tubes now, and Yennefer gasped, gritted her teeth and groaned. It was very painful. Vilgefortz stared at the crystal ball connected to the wires also connected to Yennefer. He wanted to know where Ciri was, who she was with, what she was doing, and where, and with whom she is sleeping. Yennefer screamed, piercingly, wildly, desperately, but she refused, even though it could result in permanent damage. She clenched her jaw until her teeth began to crack. Vilgefortz tried to persuade her to cooperate, but Yennefer gritted her teeth even more. A trail of blood flowed over her chin. So Vilgefortz called Rience in. He put screws around her hands and fingers, and Yennefer told them both to go to hell, and Vilgefortz told Rience to pull the screws. Slowly. A while later, Yennefer's unconscious body was dragged across the floor towards the dungeon. She had not given up Ciri, but involuntarily she had thought of Geralt. Her feelings for him were too deep, and Vilgefortz now knew where Geralt was. Sometime later, Yennefer is invited to dinner with Vilgefortz and both Stefan Skellen, with a massive cold, and Leo Bonhart. Her fingers aren't quite healed yet, but she is determined to eat with cutlery. Vilgefortz tells her that Ciri has departed from this world, and Yennefer has only herself to blame. He chastises Yennefer over participating in the experiments surrounding the Elder Blood, which of course eventually led to Ciri being born. He then continued to state that Geralt was also dead, and that he, Vilgefortz, was responsible. Yennefer's eyes burned with hatred. He mocked her some more until Yennefer noted that both Rience and Shiru, a half-elf, were absent from the castle, and that her guard has recently stopped abusing her. She noted that what Vilgefortz said was likely a lie, and he lost both Ciri and Geralt while they organized a bloodbath for his minions. She asks in Elder Speech if he's afraid. Vilgefortz then tells Yennefer that she is no longer needed, but he won't kill her yet, she will remain in isolation. But if she goes on a hunger strike again, he's not going to waste time trying to feed her through a tube. She was then led back to her cell, chained in dimeritium of course. Leo Bonhart then entered her cell and introduced himself. He told her to remember his name. She told him, "Go fuck yourself, pig." He then told her of what he did to Ciri and that she escaped. He also told her that Geralt had burned at the stake and showed her 3 Witcher medallions he gathered, of a cat, a griffin, and a wolf. She insulted him some more and he lunged at her in an attempt to rape her. But Yennefer jabbed a fork deeply into his cheekbone and bashed him with her dimeritium shackles. 2 guards then entered, and Bonhart roared at them to hold Yennefer down and stretch her legs open. But the guards told them he'd better leave now. Holding and stretching was not their job, and they didn't want to end up like Rience and Shiru. Not long after these events, Ciri finds Vilgefortz castle and is captured when she tries to bargain for Yennefer's life. Geralt and his gang of misfits then also show up to save both Ciri and Yennefer. Once inside the castle, Geralt found Yennefer very fast, and it made his blood boil. She was being dragged down the hall by a group of guards. She was ragged and bound in chains, but it did not prevent her from putting up a fight and swearing at them like a porter. When Geralt attacked and killed one, another guard put a knife to Yennefer's throat and shouted he'd kill her if Geralt came close. But Geralt was unimpressed and the man ran at the sight of his raised sword. Geralt then expertly slashed the dimeritium chains off Yennefer, who said she knew he'd come. The soldiers then slowly backed away, scared. Yennefer told them to be gone. She now stood proudly again and used her magic to appear a giant before them. The guards quickly fled. Then Yennefer and Geralt went after Ciri and Vilgefortz. With Geralt's sword and Yennefer's magic, they quickly slaughtered their way through the castle and found Vilgefortz, who immediately attacked. He noted that he was not surprised by Yennefer trying to fight him, as she was a woman and evolutionarily lower and ruled by her hormones. But Geralt was supposed to be reasonable, a mutant, exempt from emotions. Lightning crashed down and Yennefer shielded them from it with her magic. As Geralt was knocked down and Vilgefortz paralyzed Yennefer in mid-air, Regis, Geralt's vampire friend, flew in the shape of a giant bat and rushed Vilgefortz quietly, before he could raise a protection spell. Regis tore at his face with his claws, but Vilgefortz pushed him off and Regis returned to his human form. They fought a while, but in the end Regis lost. Then Vilgefortz and Geralt dueled. Vilgefortz's iron rod versus Geralt's sword. Geralt was severely outmatched. As Vilgefortz raised his rod to strike the final blow, Geralt clenched his fist around Vengila's medallion, which cast a spell of illusion. The rod fell and missed again. Vilgefortz finally realized what was happening, but it was too late. Geralt slashed him across the stomach. He then kicked him back and slashed him across the torso up to the collarbone. He then cut off his head. Geralt, Yennefer and Ciri finally met in the corridors of the castle. Yennefer told her to fix her hair and not slouch, then told her to come to her. She fixed her hair and hugged her very tightly. Ciri called her mother and she called Ciri daughter. As they then went to exit the castle, they were met with Stefan Skellen and his men, still trying to kill them. Trying and failing. Once they got to the bottom of the stairs, Emperor Emhyr va Emrys showed up with his army and arrested Skellen immediately. Emhyr then ordered Vacher de Rideau to find them a discreet chamber where Geralt and him could talk. During the talk, it was revealed that Juni, Ciri's father, who was considered dead, was in fact Emhyr. And this secret would have to die with Geralt. And Yennefer would have to die with him, as Emhyr knew that Yennefer would pay any price to save Ciri and to avenge Geralt's death. Geralt agreed to this and asked to say goodbye to them. Emhyr agreed to that and asked if he and Yennefer would like to commit suicide together in a warm bath while slitting their wrists. Geralt said he was pretty sure Yennefer would be okay with that, but he'd have to ask. Yennefer agreed without hesitation. Ciri was upset, but there was no helping it. When Emhyr left them in the bathroom, Yennefer asked him seriously to promise her not to hurt her daughter. She did not want to die with the notion that she is crying. And he agreed. He would never be able to hurt her. And then he left. Geralt then wondered if they should undress. He'd hate for them to pull out a naked corpse. Yennefer noted that it likely wouldn't matter how they pulled them out and began to undress. Yennefer then threw her arms around Geralt's neck and Geralt asked if this was really the time. Yennefer replied that every time is appropriate, but especially their last few moments. When they were done, they told each other they loved one another and called out for the guards to bring knives. But no one came. Ciri then peered in and told them to get out. They were all gone and that they should get dressed because they both looked awfully ridiculous naked. The three then started traveling together. First to the town of Jealousy, where the rats, Ciri's gang, had been murdered, to find their graves and pay respects. Then to Claremont, where Ciri had fought in the arena, and they burned said arena to the ground. And so they went from village to village, visiting places Ciri had been to right wrongs. As they traveled, slowly stories of the three ghostly riders of the Wild Hunt began to circulate. When Ciri was away for a moment, Geralt and Yennefer made love. Yennefer asked him seriously if he had been with other women when they were not together. Geralt lied and said he wasn't. She believed him. When Geralt woke up from a nightmare, he woke to see Yennefer and Ciri communicate with the lodge, ordering Yennefer to bring Ciri to them. But Yennefer refused, saying they could not give either of them orders. Ciri said she wasn't afraid of them. Then Philippa ordered them to meet on June the 1st and they would punish disobedience. Yennefer said only she would come, and to let Ciri stay with Geralt, as a show of good faith. Ciri would come later. Then Geralt woke up. For real this time. But what he dreamed had happened. Yennefer left not long after, leaving Ciri with Geralt. A while after, Ciri went after Yennefer to the lodge. At the lodge in Monte Calvo, Ciri was introduced to the lodge members. Ciri could only think of Philippa as Lady Owl. She told Ciri to sit down, but not Yennefer, as she was to be tried and punished, and she'd stand for as long as it took the lodge to decide her fate. In the blink of an eye, Ciri ended protocol, loudly stating that she would then also stand. The other sorceresses then noted she might as well sit, and Philippa caved. They explained to Ciri what they wanted with her, to marry her to Prince Tancred and conceive a son with him. And they would have to change her last name as well. Philippa and Sheila would not mind her using their last names. Enid then noted that they'd all like to have a daughter like Ciri, and so they envied Yennefer. Ciri then thanked the sorceresses, but she would rather be called Cirilla of Vengerberg. But Ciri did not yet agree to their plans. She wanted to explain things to Geralt and think things over. After some negotiating, she was allowed, and Triss would accompany them. On the way to Rivia, Yennefer prodded Triss about her tryst with Geralt. She told Triss to stop thinking about Geralt, stop talking about him, stop admiring his noble character, because he was with Yennefer, not Triss. When Yennefer said she wanted to grab her hair right about now, Triss yelled back to try it and she'd scratch her eyes out. Then they both fell silent as Ciri galloped back towards them and stammered Geralt had come full circle. They rushed to the burning town where a pogrom was happening. There was murder everywhere around them. Yennefer was pulled off her horse by the mob and they kicked and beat her. She burned the people around her and they yelled at her, "Witch! Elf sorceress!" Triss then grabbed her arm and pleaded with her to run, but Yennefer would not leave Ciri and Geralt behind. Yennefer, spouting fire from her hands and eyes, leapt back onto her horse. Then people started throwing stones at her, and she passed out. She then remembered the time she attempted to commit suicide by cutting her forearms and wrists. Tissaia de Vries saved her, even though, as she said, Yennefer had cut herself deeply and accurately. Tissaia then told her that she would work with Yennefer from now on, that she would straighten her spine and flatten the hump on her back. She then told her to cry, pour it all out, because it would be her last cry. Starting now, she would never cry. There is nothing more pathetic than a sorceress in tears. When Yennefer came to, she was spitting blood. Triss had dragged her away from the crowd. Yennefer then told Triss to teleport them out of there, but Triss would not run. She would face her fear. They then started casting spells together, but Yennefer was distracted, and her thoughts lingered to possible escapes to other spells. So Triss conjured a spell of her own, later named Marigold's Hailstorm. A spell that was never registered, as it was never repeated again. Triss had an injured mouth and spoke slurred and distorted. She was really trying to cast Alzur's Thunder. Icy hailstones the size of chicken eggs now fell on Rivia. Yennefer was able to throw up a shield last second above Triss and her to spare them. When the hailstorm abated, they ran quickly. The storm had cooled everyone's head, though. It was now calm enough that the army dared intervene. Many of the houses had been destroyed. Ciri kneeled near Geralt, who lay in a pool of blood. Yennefer and Triss also arrived, and Yennefer tried desperately to heal Geralt with her magic. Ciri said it wouldn't work. Yennefer's face contracted and she held back tears. Ciri repeated to her that there is nothing more pathetic than a sorceress in tears. "You taught me that," she said, "but now you're pathetic, Yennefer. You and your magic, which is useless." Yennefer did not reply, but kept trying to cast spells as she held Geralt. Triss knew that the spell Yennefer was casting required great amounts of energy. She also knew it would not help. The spell exhausted Yennefer. Triss was surprised she'd kept up for so long. Yennefer then fell on the pavement next to the Witcher, and suddenly it became very cold. Ciri remembered that she gave up her power in the desert. If she hadn't, she'd have been able to save them now. From the mist that had suddenly appeared, a white unicorn appeared. He ran across the lake towards them. It was Iorveth. His horn suddenly blazed with light, and Ciri touched the horn. Her eyes filled with white heat, and her head was enveloped in a halo. With one hand she touched the horn, and with the other Geralt. From her fingers drifted a ribbon of flickering light. Iorveth then pointed at a boat sailing on the water. He then disappeared in the white fog, and Ciri told her horse, Kelpie, to go with him. They both disappeared. Ciri then asked the group to help, and they carried Geralt and Yennefer into the boat. Ciri then also got into the boat with them and asked Triss to apologize to the lodge for her, but she cannot stay if Geralt and Yennefer cannot either. Triss asked her if she could come with her, but Ciri said she did not know what she asked, but that she would see her again. The boat then disappeared like a ghost. Triss thought to herself that they would never meet again. When Geralt opened his eyes, he was with Yennefer in a pleasant meadow. He loved her so much it hurt. He was also still hurt from the pitchfork incident, and Yennefer told him not to move. He asked her about Ciri, but Yennefer said that she was gone. Neither of them knew where they were right now, but it didn't matter, as long as they were together. And this is where Yennefer's story in the books ends. I'll be discussing Season of Storm separately, as it was written after both The Witcher 1 and 2. In The Witcher 1, she's not mentioned at all, except for a few stories here and there. During The Witcher 2, we learn that Yennefer was taken by the Wild Hunt, and Geralt exchanges his own life for hers. Later, Letho of Gullett and his 2 Witcher friends, Serret and Ox, take Yennefer with them and protect her until they reach Nilfgaard, where Yennefer is held and interrogated. She has amnesia, as Geralt does too. And then we arrive at the story in The Witcher 3. I hope you enjoyed Yennefer's background story, or at least understand her a little better now. See you next time!